please welcome to the stage, Johan Cruyff. First of all, the important thing to say is it's a huge pleasure for all of us that you've decided to come and share your wisdom, your knowledge about football this morning. We were going to start talking about youth development, but football is a game of improvisation, of creativity. And yesterday we had the Dortmund coach, Thomas Tuchel, here speaking very, very interestingly, challengingly. He's famous for having become Dortmund coach because of his successes with youth football. And he said, if I was to go back now, I wish I'd made it more difficult for the young players. I wish I'd made them play on bad pitches. I wish we'd taken away the bus driver sometimes, that we made the air conditioning in the dressing room not work. He said, maybe we're in danger of making things too simple for the kids that we're developing because of the brilliant facilities that we have. Given your background and your belief in street football and overcoming problems, do you understand the type of thing that Thomas was trying to communicate?
Yes, and I think the same way. Because, like I said, when we were young, we could play the street. You can't play in the street anymore. But a lot of times with small children, I was playing in the parking lot. So what does that mean? It means that the surface is bad. When you fall down, it hurts. So you try to learn not to fall down. For small players, they quickly understand they've got to be technically much better than the other. Because if he's too slow, a big one will hit him over and he will be hurt. Of course, we had a lot of complaints of the mothers who said, well, my child fall down. Well, the game of football is not to fall down. I mean, you mustn't fall down. So, or you've got to organize it one way or the other. So I always think that, these sort of things help you to think. The problem today is a lot of coaches are thinking for them. I always think that put a problem there and think about it, or try to do something, or try to... And as soon as you think, or as soon as you do something you're not capable of, or you don't know, you're getting better. It's like you're right-footed, you learn to shoot with your left foot. Of course you make a mistake. But as soon as you control it, you learn a lot. If your right foot is good, you'll never be better.
I recently spoke to Gary Neville, who's now an analyst on Sky Television, and he told me that more and more he sees high-level footballers who don't know how to solve problems.
Yeah.
They see somebody coming at them, the man goes past them or passes by them, and they don't have a way to interpret, to change, and to improve. Do you see this as an increasing trend?
Yeah, you see it a lot if you try to look at it in a coach way. So not as a public, but a coach. So you see, for instance, Sunday, I saw Eriksen scored 2 goals from 2 free kicks. First of all, the commentator, I won't say he's useless, but it's got no sense what he said. And you've got to know what's going on. You've got to know what is. So the first one, he always shoots with the right foot. The wall is there. As soon as you put the wall, the goalkeeper can't see the ball. So he will see him 10 yards later. And it's on his way. So he's got to do something before. So they left the first post open, which I think it's the shortest way, so you always got to close it. So we were standing more or less to the second post. The other one starts kicking, so he moves, of course, because the big space is there, and the ball went just past him. But if you go this way, you can't get back. It's impossible. And that's what you see in the most of the times with all the defenders. And I'm talking about the defenders because you've got to defend well if you want to attack. You can't attack without a good defense. It's impossible. But you've got to know how to defend. So we know that a goalkeeper can protect 5.5 meters, maybe 6. But there's always 1.5 meter which he can't defend. So a defender, in my opinion, if some attacker's got the ball, has got to defend the corner, not the ball. He doesn't need to take the ball away. He must prevent that it goes in. So if you know that the goalkeeper takes 5 yards, so let him shoot in this 5 yards, who cares? The goalkeeper's there to stop it. And if he can't stop it, well, we change the goalkeeper. But he's not allowed to come into my corner because I'm defending the corner. And if you see every weekend how many goals goes in, it's unbelievable that nobody ever teach them these sort of things. And it's quite easy to teach.
So we're talking about players being able to analyze solutions, to overcome obstacles, right? And throughout your career, a recurring factor is you've rebelled, you've criticized, you've said, I see things differently. There's a contradiction in that we're in a room of specialists who develop systems and who maybe could fall into the same trap of saying, players, do it my way, and then taking away the capacity for the players to think. Do you think that systems in football, that structures, run the risk of killing intelligence, creativity, interpretation in footballers?
That's one of the dangerous things, of course. It's very dangerous if a coach is too dominate to certain players. And on one side you understand because the coach always be valued of his team if he wins. If he's got a team who's losing, they said he's a bad coach. It's got nothing to do with it. It's a question to educate players. And educating players is what he knows, he knows. I mean, you don't need to teach him. What he doesn't know, he's got to know. He's got to teach him, tell him how to do it. And if he's got some habits, which every player has, if you've got some habits which are not good for the team, let's say you're a very good outside player, very intelligent, you're very tactical, everything is perfect, but you don't defend properly in a proper way. So what I did is then this outside right, put him 1 month as a right back, and put the same outside right in front of him. So he will have the problem which he created himself, is he doesn't. So does it for a month, he starts complaining, and he's right. I said, exactly what you do. So if you don't want him to get into problems, do it properly. And it's not a question of running, it's just a question of brains, get in position, and you can do it walking.
Do you still believe, as you have believed, or you often stated throughout your career, that perhaps the best guy to begin to train young, talented footballers is maybe not a coach, but a senior professional, a guy in the top team who has been intelligent, technical, and has the ability not only to tell young footballers how to develop, but to show them too?
Well, first of all, I think he's got to produce it himself, as he's still a player. So if you're still a player, you can train yourself. One of the fantastic examples which we had was Ruud Krol, playing in the Dutch national team. He was first in center defender, then he went to play left back, but his left foot was not good enough. So the coach said, your left foot must be better. So what he did is that every day, 10 minutes before the training started, went along the side, center, left foot. And I saw him doing it for a month. Not one day, month, every day. And the highest moment was when we played against Brazil, when he went along the side, got across with the left foot, I scored a goal. But that was just the job of working month and month on his left foot. And that's where you have to go to. So it's not a question of, he is great in this, so we forget the others. No. What he's got, he's got.
I come from a country where sometimes in professional football, I spoke to a top-level manager recently who was talking about Frank Lampard and how Frank did months and months and months of extra work on his own over and over again. This trainer told me that many of the other players sneered at him, laughed at him. Have you encountered this, that some people don't want to see players putting in extra effort to develop their skills?
Well, sometimes they're laughing about it or whatever, but you've got to know that the only thing what you get out is what you put in. And if you put 50% in, you get 50% out. If you put 100% in, you will get 100% out. It depends on quality, what is the 100%. But you will get the 100% out. And if somebody doesn't do it, it's impossible to put 50% in and get 100% out. It doesn't exist.
But I'm also talking about a culture where some players won't want you to improve, won't want to give extra work, won't want to be shown up by the guy who's doing more to improve himself.
Yeah, but at the other end, we know that with 16 you're a great talent, and with 20 it's over. It's always afterwards what we could say it had a value or not.
You should have done more. Back on script, not to be provocative, but in modern football where clubs increasingly find solutions in the transfer market, is an academy, is football base, una cantera, is it still relevant? Is it necessary in every club? Vital that they put resources into it, spend time in developing it? Or are we in an era where clubs can say, we will buy our way to success? What's your view?
Well, totally the opposite probably, because as soon as result and money are on the first place, you are on the wrong road. It's important, but it always should be second or third. So the philosophy is always, I think, demanding, which means that you can see today, things are going worse because every big club with a lot of money can buy 10 foreign players, or 12, or whatever. My vision is always that if you are just allowed to have, let's say, 5 foreign players, first of all, these 5 you will buy very well focused, very well organized, very well done. That's to start with. Then you've got 15 players left. So probably will be from your own club about 7, 8 players, something like that, youth development. Youth development is one of the most important things because there is at that moment a relationship between the fans, the public, and the youth players because they don't see him only when he's playing the first team, maybe they saw him playing in the second team, maybe in the youth, which means there is a relationship between the player, the club, and the fans. And basically, if you do that in a proper way, if he gets there or not, you got an ambassador for your whole life. And that's what it's all about. The fans are working the whole week to enjoy themselves. So enjoy them. Don't say, no, we need to win. I mean, everybody likes to win. But at the end, if there's 20 teams playing, there's one champion.
So there's a direct correlation, in your opinion, between the many, many years of cantera work, youth development work, which began under you at Football Club Barcelona, and the fact that recently both Pep Guardiola and Tito Vilanova were able to play teams that either had 8, 9, or on a couple of occasions, 11 guys who'd come through the academy. Yeah. There's a correlation between that strategy and philosophy and the type of football we saw under Guardiola, Villanova, the quality, the trophies, and the way in which people enjoyed it.
Yes, I've got one very important aspect, is that if you've got a youth player playing, all kind of youth development, they play everywhere in the neighborhood, when they're 12 years, 13 years, 14 years, and so on. But they play against other teams, and all these other teams are your future fans. So it's a question that the relationship is much, much bigger than just the people in the stadium. It's the whole community who's part of it. And then your question was? I forgot the other one.
The question was, if you invest time and intelligence in bringing youth football up, and we look at the fact that Tito and Pep were able to play 8, 9, 10, 11 canteranos in their team, there's a correlation between that success and the quality of the play. The way in which the world fell in love with the brand of football, the trophies, that if you do it brilliantly and you have that much success, then it will be more attractive, it will be a better quality of football, and it will be more automatic, more instinctive. Is that a true proposition?
It's a true proposition, but I think one of the most important things is the mentality of the country where you are. If you got, say, Spain, if you get the Basque people from the north, these people are very, very happy if somebody gives 100%. And if he gives 100%, okay, he's got some failures, but he did whatever he could. If you play in Barcelona for Ajax, you can work the hell out of you. But if you lose or you don't do it well, they start whistling. So it's a question of the mentality where you are. If you play in Italy, it's different than you play in Germany. And the people understand they should be satisfied. So you must always get a balance between one thing and the other. your philosophy of football, the way you play, the way you buy players. So when I went to Barcelona in the beginning, I bought 3 Basque players. There were already 3, which means I had 6, so I could train with 12, because 6 opponents. So you were 12 players you could to try with, or to start with. And that's the most important thing, that if you analyze very good the mentality of the club, of the people, and your players, there's where your, let's say, work starts. Because you can't implement my mentality from Holland into England or Germany. It's impossible. So it's a question of seeing and putting yourself in the way that the others think, and then make the best out of it.
Now this is a nervous moment, because I promised myself I would never ever argue with Johan Cruyff. But I think what you demonstrated at the Camp Nou is different from what you've just said.
No.
Because you implanted a mentality that the crowd in the Camp Nou in 1988 and 89, they weren't ready for. They were impatient initially. They whistled that the ball would go forward in a British style more quickly. But you changed the entire mentality of the fans and the media with patience and with success.
Yes, but if you analyze very good the Catalan mentality, maybe because Franco was there in the before, or you never know why, but it was a lack of confidence. Like, I want to do something new, but what are you going to do when it fails? Well, we have a look when it fails. I mean, that's my idea, and we found out why I failed, and maybe I can change it, maybe not. Who cares? So you've got to do something. So it was not a question of just one thing or another. I think the biggest problem was confidence in yourself. Do whatever you have to do, and then of course your words are getting heavier. At the moment you get success, of course. But I think what we changed there was the confidence of players, confidence of the people. I can remember that when the first time I've played there, and our goalkeeper didn't get the ball correctly, but he put it down. Everybody starts screaming and start crying and negative in all ways of their way of thinking. And you had to change that, because you never can win with doubt. You've got to be convinced. So you've got to convince the people, and basically that's the work of a coach. The best work of a coach is his eyes. Sit down on the ball and have a look what everybody does, and give them individually these details what you need.
Let me go back on a point that you made so that we're clear. I think you said that perhaps a league like England might benefit from the restriction you had as a coach, where there was a cap on the number of foreigners you could play. And you were saying specifically that some leagues will benefit if they're not allowed to play more than, say, 4, 5 in their team who don't come from that country. Is that your argument?
Yes, because if you look at the national teams, which it's the proud of a whole community, of a whole country. I don't see any Spanish player playing in the biggest teams in the forward. So then, in Barcelona or in Madrid, there's no Spanish player playing. So how you want the national team to win? So how can you be proud of the country when nobody's playing there? And that's what you see every time more. I think in England it's just Rooney who's playing on the top, and the rest, where? Play different game, different way of thinking, never in the top, never in Champions League. So how you want them to win on a European championship or world championship? So I think the restriction is one of the best things. Probably I will be the only one, but that's the way I think.
We talked about the Canter, let me be specific too. You said not every philosophy will match the community in which you try to bring it to. But you're still a clear believer that if you have a football base, if you have an academy with several levels of age, you must build a philosophy of play which fits with the first team, that it must be continuous, that the kids who are learning, beginning 8, 10, 12, 15, 17, 18, up to the first team, it must be like one continuous cycle with the same idea, the same strategy, and a correlation of ideas between all the levels. This is still true for you?
It's true, but let's say halfway. Because in the first place, you educate a person. So always start with the person. He is unique because there's just one of them. Maybe he knows football, maybe he gets into the first team, but do you care about him? Do you give him education? 99.9% of the clubs, they don't. Do they help them financially? They come into a club, 16 years old, a talent, and in 20 years it's over. Is somebody taking care about his financial situation these 4 years? So when he's finished, he's got something, he's got some sort of an education. We all know that it's a very dangerous situation for players who go too early to another country, and especially to a big club. Because if you're 20 years old, how you want to compete with another very good player for 30 years old? Maybe one, maybe two players can do it, but where do they go? And I think the value of the person is totally underestimated in almost 80% of the things. So all the things who are important, that as a person you can be a very good player, but you see so many sad things. We did some sort of an investigation in Brazil 2 years ago, I think it was, 2 or 3 years ago, that 80% of the players who lift the World Championship Cup are living below poverty. That's the truth, not the one who earns a lot of money. That's the truth. So you see, wherever you go, you see these problems, and you should solve these problems. There's no club who's taking care about the financial, there's no club who takes care about any education, and I think that's one of the most important things.
So you would have been a supporter of our colleague from Zenit St. Petersburg yesterday, who on this stage said that as they're building their academy, their number one goal is that anybody comes through that academy, whether they succeed as a first team player or not, goes out of the academy as a better, more rounded, more educated person, able to do well in society. You would back that objective as part of Zenit's academy?
In general, I back it up completely, because the most important thing what a sporter is his character. Football player or whatsoever. So he's got this character, he's got this quality. So he can be used in all kinds of senses in the club. And that's a unique thing of a sportsman, is his character. And if you played on a high level, you've got so much experiences that almost, well, I don't know anybody who has got on high level in a normal life has had these sort of experiences. If you just take one simple example, is that you play in a field, sometimes 100,000 people applaud, and sometimes they whistle. Then people from the press come, and when you win, everything is nice. But now answer him in 1 second if you lost. I mean, these are all qualities. And all these qualities, I think, makes you a better person, or a person more complete.
Let's try to be specific. In that manner of trying to build a person's character when they're young, to be able to cope with the difficulties that face them, what are some of the specific advices you would give to coaches in this room who are bringing guys and girls of talent, 14, 15, 16? What can they do specifically that you approve of, that you know succeeds?
Probably two things. It's human that you always fall back on your quality. But if you're young and you want to learn, you've got to teach the difficulties he has, not the quality he has. So it's a confrontation directly with the person. They say, okay, you've got to learn what you don't know. I don't care what you know. What you know, you've got it. That's the first stage, that the confrontation is there. And at the end, you get better as a person, you get better as a player.
So you emphasize the quality first?
Of course the quality first, because you don't train where the quality is. You've got to train where not the quality is. And then the responsibilities. For instance, when I was a coach, and in the beginning, they would talk about corner kicks. So they said, coach, what do we have to do? I said, I don't care, as long as it doesn't go in. Your problem is it doesn't go in. If you go in too quick, too many times, you go out and put another one. So don't ask me how to defend. You have to defend. I don't know if you like to get out of the goal or get into the goal. I mean, it's up to you. And if you want to discuss it, take the second coach, take the second goalkeeper. And if you want my opinion, I'll give you my opinion. But don't do what I say. Do what you want to do. And that's the same thing with all the free kicks they take. I mean, there are 100,000 people. I've got to, from the side, I've got to shout what they've got to do. I can't make these decisions. I don't know who's feeling well, who doesn't feel well in the team at a certain moment. And in the training, I never ever saw what they were doing to create a free kick, because it's not my problem, it's their problem. Their problem is to kick the ball in the free kick. And then I had a question last time when we scored with Barcelona the first Champions League or the European Cup, where Koeman shot the ball in. He said, well, how did you organize it? I said, I didn't know what they were going to do. I wasn't there. It's their job to do it.
And the proof is that Stoichkov told me that the previous day, they did work on it on their own.
Of course.
And it seems to me you've come already all the way back to what we talked about Thomas Tuchel. Yeah. Rather than giving the players all the solutions, giving them everything, throw some of the responsibility to them, right?
They play, it's their responsibility. Of course, at the end, I'm responsible for the people who are there. But if people don't take any risk, don't take any responsibility, I mean, they can't be in the team. Or they've got nothing to say.
One of the things that I think we need to be most grateful for is that you created a belief system, an atmosphere, a culture at your club, both in your first team work, but also in the scouters, in the people who made decisions in the academy, whereby both first Pep Guardiola and then latterly Xavi said, if this hadn't been a Cruyff club, we wouldn't have been picked, we wouldn't have survived, people wouldn't have had patience with us. Carlos Naval, who went to scout Pep Guardiola, said he walks like Charlie Chaplin. Yeah. If any other scouting report came back with that, they would say, okay, send him to the movies. Why is it that more clubs, more people, don't see things the way that you do and say, talent first, character first, intelligence first, physique, size second? Why is that debate still going on?
But like I said, you look at the person, you look at his qualities, and you look at his difficulties. So you name Guardiola. Guardiola technically was a great player, great vision. So it was quite easy on that side. But he was in a position that he had to defend. He was playing in front of the defense. So I said, can you defend? So I let Romario or whatever, they were out playing him. So if I've got to myself, I'm not a defender too. But if I've got to defend all this blue, I'm a very bad defender. But when I've got to defend this table, I'm the best defender. So not a question of I'm a good or bad one, it's the size. It's the meters, what you've got to defend. So I said to Guardiola, football-wise, offensive life, you're better than anybody. But sometimes we don't have the ball and you've got to defend. Your only job is to get the two other midfielders, one here, one there. You defend the table. You're one of the best defenders. So it's not a question of hitting somebody or getting the ball or whatever, what we were talking about before with the defenders. No, it's the spot you've got to defend. So your only problem is not defending, is to get the two players here. And as long as you got them here, you never get into trouble.
That story ended well, if you look at Pep's intelligence as a footballer and a coach. But I still want to ask you again, I'm asking your opinion about other people, so it's difficult. But if the proof of your work is in the greatness of your era and what came afterwards, the players who developed, the way that Spain played with the Barcelona influence and won so many trophies, why is it that so often people will still judge on height, power, speed, and not intelligence, technique? You must ask yourself why other people can't see the evidence and apply it.
Well, in the first place, I think, and that's probably the most important thing, the most difficult thing, is to analyze the player. Because if you take the midfield, Xavi, Busquets and Iniesta, the most simple ball, they will never lose. And if you see any other game, the most simple ball, they will lose. Which means that they've got never a mistake in their passing. In the simple thing. If you see the other teams, and I mean, good or bad is for me a big difference. So, I don't know, when I get the ball here, they said, well, it's good. No, for me it's bad, because it's got to come here. And this quality, you could say, quality of all the players, because when the comes here, the ball comes here, I've got to control it with my right foot, I've got to turn around, I've got to look, and then I've got to play. But if you play it here, control with my left foot, I've got the vision of everything, so I can speed up the game. And these ball had to be good. And Barcelona was lucky, or I won't say lucky, it was their work. They did three type of players. And basically, if you say defenders, who could defend from all three of them? But they were great football players. And they knew very well that any other player under pressure will lose a lot of ball. So the quality of the team is put it together, a small space, or very little space to the opponent, and they will give you the ball. Because it's very difficult under pressure to get a good ball. Or you've got to be very good in technique. They were, so they could do it.
It wasn't you who scouted Iniesta, Xavi, Busquets, but it was your people.
Yeah.
It was your disciples, people you'd put in place. Our colleague from Sporting Lisbon yesterday made me sit up and pay attention when, during a discussion about systems and methodology, he said, but how do we pick, how do we scout young talent? What criteria do we use? How do we use our eyes? How do you make sure that you put the best product into the system, and then if the system is good or bad, the very best guys will always come through anyway? Help us, if you can, by saying, what are the criteria that under your system Barcelona used in the scouting to pick the young guys of talent?
First of all, you start again with the person. Somebody can be shy and won't show himself, but could have the qualities. I remember that we start with, in Ajax, where I'm talking about ages ago, we had an open day, a lot of people came there. I always took the first team to this day to let them think, let them have a look, so it's quite of education again. When a day like that, your first team players are there, or promising youth players. And then there was a player who played 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and he touched one ball. But he was always well organized, well placed. His position was perfect. So at the end I said, could he play football? Because I didn't know. But his position play was so good that if somebody ball, he was always there where he should be. We said, well, this is unbelievable what I see. So I said, well, he didn't touch the ball, but let him come back. And let's have a look if he does, if we play a small game, 3 against 3, so he has to touch the ball. Well, it turned out he couldn't play at all. He had no idea. So he was always somewhere, but they won't give him the ball. But that's a nice thing about watching, that it's not a 100% thing. But it's looking at 13 details where somebody loves the ball, likes the ball, passes the ball, controls the ball. He's got individual qualities. And in youth play, and a football player, we always say it's one person. No. I mean, an outside right has got nothing to do with a midfielder, nothing to do with a fullback, nothing to do with whoever. So there is a lot of choices. And the developing of a player, 90% of my fullbacks, wherever I was in clubs, were before wingers. The only thing is they had to, let's say, learn to defend a little. Because in my way of thinking, if we got the ball and if we are attacking, my fullbacks have got more players in front of them than the wingers from the other team. Which means that he should be technically good enough to do something with the ball with so many people on one half of the field. So it's a question of educating. So both fullbacks at the end in Barcelona, one I sent to, I think it was Tenerife or Las Palmas, and normally they ask the money to give a player on loan. So I said, well, you've got to pay 100,000 euros, but every game he plays, 5,000 euros less. So I was secure he's going to play 20 games. But I was looking not to send him away, but to prepare him as a fullback. So he needed to play games. He needed to defend because it was not a big team. So he came back and then he went into the first team and he stayed, I don't know, until the national team, I think.
We're talking about Chappie Ferrer, but he's one of the few players under your system that was loaned out and then successfully came back. One of the questions I wanted to ask was, how do youth divisions make the decision about keeping faith with the guy who's talented but slow to develop, or saying, we'll take him out of our system, we'll trust another club to give him first team experience, even though the other club might not have identical strategy to us? How do you make that decision to stay faith, to promote to the first team, or to loan?
Well, I told Chappie in this, Ferrari in this case, I said, well, as a fullback, a winger, you will never get into the first team. You've got a chance as a fullback. So I'm going to put you in a team where you've got to defend. Because you've got to learn to defend. So it's, again, you loan out a player and he's got to go to a team where he's got to learn where his deficit is. So if you've got a technically good player, but he's not very competitive, don't put him in a good team. Put him in a bad team where he's got to work. So he's got to compete. And then he will learn, so then he could be worthwhile to come back and play.
We started a little bit late, and I want to allow the chance for the audience to have some questions. Walter, is this the moment to go for questions, or do we have a little bit more time? Then if we have a little bit more time, then let's do 2-3 questions about the football that we wanted to know about. Then we will open the audience to questions to Johan. When we talk about, I like very much indeed something that you've made a principle of your teachings, and it's been successful for you, always taking a young kid out of his comfort zone. If he has talent, if he looks football ready, whether his size or his age says he's ready, you have always been somebody who says promote him, challenge him in the same way, I suppose, as you wanted Chappie Ferrer to be challenged. Again, for practical purposes, how do people make that decision about saying, this kid I'm going to move forward? What do you think about before you make that decision? Because there's a risk involved, I guess.
No, I don't think it's a big risk. I think today it's much more difficult than it was in my time. Because today, if somebody is quite a good player, the manager is there, the parents are there, everybody thinks that the golden boat is coming by, and that's a bigger problem. But it's secondary. If you're interested in the player, you want him to, of course, you want him to go into the first team. So he's had to be quality-wise, mentally-wise, be prepared to go into the first team. My responsibility is the first team. When I see a lack of whatever in certain circumstances, he's got to do it. And if the manager, the parents, or whoever it was, says no, you say, okay, bye-bye. You can't do it because it's not an institution where everybody can do whatever they want. I mean, somebody is responsible. Everybody in the line down is responsible and has got to think in the same way. And of course, it's a lot of details who are always in the football. Because as a manager, I'm very good in technique, tactic. But I've got no idea about physical, not at all. So I never would be involved in physical. So when the first time I went to Barcelona, there was a physical coach, a very good one. And he said, what I have to do? I said, I don't care. As long as they can play 90 minutes and they're laughing, for me it's perfect. If they can't play 90 minutes, you go out and put another one in. So don't ask me, yeah, but who's in charge? I said, you're in charge because you're the physical coach. So tomorrow morning you start and I stay asleep and just have a look what you do. Don't ask me. It's your job. It's not my job. I've got to judge your job. But it's not mine. Otherwise I get your salary if I do it.
You mentioned two things that I want to pick up on there briefly. One, managing parents. Parents who think their son or daughter is going to be a world-class star. They want to interfere or they can't handle the pressure. Have you seen special ways of thinking about that, providing for that?
Well, If I've got to guess, I think 90% is like that. I know just a very, very, very few managers who said to a kid, a good player, 21 years, don't go. Stay 2 years longer. Develop yourself. I myself, I went to Barcelona when I was 26, 27. It's never too late. It's just a question to go on time and have enough luggage to defend yourself. But how can you go in a certain situation with 21 or 20 years? You're not capable of defending yourself. Yeah, there's an exception with Messi and maybe two others. But 99% is impossible. So they, the clubs and the manager and the parent, should think about the quality and the possibility he has. No, they put money in the first place, and like I said before, if money and winning is the most important things, forget it.
Before we go to the questions, I want to talk about the Cruyff courts that you've been investing in all around the world, maybe over 200 of them in many different countries. Please explain to the audience who might not know about your way of giving football back to the community, why you're doing it, and how it's succeeding.
Well, like we know from the beginning, there's no way you can play in the street. There's no space, a lot of buildings. But the people has got to play, to enjoy themselves. So we created, one of the office created a small field, which is 2 times and 3 times my number, which means 28, 42, and put it in the most difficult areas in any city. So I think there are 210 or in 18 countries or something like that. There will always be a men's team and a girls' team. People. And what is probably the most important thing, it's not mine, but when I give it to them, it's theirs. They've got to take care about it. They've got to be responsible. So besides playing football, create some sort of responsibility. And I've got to say that I was totally surprised how these people are. Because you think they've got nothing, they will destroy it. No, they've got nothing and they're taking care about it because the only thing they have. So it's so surprising how children, they are seeing it another way. And I just said it before, that when I was 60 years old, we went to these sort of fields, and the mayor was there, and well, you know, everybody was there. And they had a beautiful cake from a Cruyff court, and we were in the middle. And then somebody started to cut the cake, and then a boy from 10 years, head backwards, came. He said, "Hey, Professor, we're not allowed to eat on the field." So we looked at him and he said, "You're right." So we went to the tribune and have the cake there. That's how they take care about their things. It's there. They've got nothing. So it's theirs. And you can create so many things out of it, which is, yeah, a pleasure.
Football makes people happy, excited, and also proud and self-respecting. It's an opportunity we can't miss. There are microphones everywhere. If you want to put up your hand, I see one hand already, and ask Johan a question. Maybe if there's a microphone to the gentleman at the back near the desk there. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Johan, I'd like to get your thoughts on a model that is currently out there in the light of what you mentioned, that the environment has changed. The kids, the children don't play on the streets anymore. But one thing that they all do, which they used to do in the past, is go to school. What about taking coaching back into schools, and they play in an environment that challenges them because they are all mixed. They're not really just selected, quality, gifted, who end up in an academy. And then have the coaches go into the schools, support that until such a time they can go into the academies. So you're now creating a situation where they have to think through the other difficulties and the other different abilities they come across rather than just a selected group in an academy. Would that work, in your opinion?
Well, there are 2 things. If you take Europe, all the good players coming through the club system. And the club uses the academies, youth development, and all these sort of things. If you go to England or you go to the United States, all the sports people come through the universities. So they mix a lot of things. You can't say, I would say, use the schools, because they have got to go to school. So you can see very well if you can create some environment where they can play. So it's easy to see it, easy to give a training, easy to do certain things. So I would say work together with the schools, and the schools with us, with the foundation too, is a very important thing, because today there's a big difference than before. Today, both parents are working. So it's easy to leave a child, let's say 15 minutes, 20 minutes before at the playground. But then you see in whole Europe, the playground is a disaster. It's grey, it's useless. So we got the idea to paint the playground with sports. So put some wheels on the wall and try to kick the ball in. Just normal, simple things. And now you see that a lot of people are doing sport without anybody. You just need a teacher to check it a little. But these people are playing 1 hour of sports every day. So obesity is one of the biggest problems with the youth today. You can take it out a little by let them do something on the playground. Because when they have to do some sports, they can't play in the street, they can't do it there, there's no space there, there's no sports teacher at school. It's just very sad. And I think working together, you can solve a lot of problems. Problem could be more that or more that, but together it's quite easy.
We have a colleague from Aspire. Did you have the microphone? No? Sorry, next question in that case, if anybody has one now for Johan.
Behind you.
Behind you.
It's difficult, eh?
Graham behind you.
Yeah.
Johan, when you came to Barcelona, you had to change the way players thought about the game. And players in particular like coming out of the comfort zone. So what helped you most to get them out of there? Was it the repetition of drills and exercises? Was it a lot of talking to them, or simply you had to get rid of them, or a mixture of all?
Well, first of all, my biggest experience before a coach to being a player there, which means you know exactly how they were thinking, the board of directors were thinking, people around were thinking. So when you come in as a coach, you've got a lot of luggage already. So when we came in, it was like Barcelona was one of the biggest clubs, at least in the region. They never won anything. But then you start with, like you said, analyzing the things, get people not in their comfort zone. Sometimes you get a player who's a great player, but let's say it's difficult to convince him. The easiest way is to train with public, do an exercise where you know he's going to fail, and you don't have to say anything, the people start whistling. So that's the easiest way, that if somebody doesn't want to listen, he will find out. So you can do it a good way doesn't work, you do it in a bad way. And that's how it is. If you want to get him further on, and you will have using him in a positive way, he's got to learn. And if he doesn't, well, some of these tricks are quite easy. So a lot of people always are training behind bars and behind I don't know what. There's no public allowed. I always love to train with public because you can use them in either way, or to applaud or to whistle to somebody.
One of the things that have changed in Spain in the time that I've lived there is that every training session now in a senior team is closed. So this factor that you're talking about, maybe they want privacy, they want to maybe have secrecy about the strategies, but you believe that they're losing something by closing every session?
Yeah, but I mean, today with all the technical things, you know everything about everything. And if you see the lineup, you know he is playing like that and he is playing like that. I mean, I never thought about these sort of things. Maybe because I've played in a team or I'm coaching a team like Barcelona. He said, we want to play like that. And that's, I've been raised by Rinus Michels. He says, okay, we like to play like that. And then, let's say before the game, he said, well, there could be difficulty there because he's very good. There are two options. You can change this or you can change that. Or if you see it different, do whatever you want. And that's how normally you give confidence to a player, in this case to me, and then you start thinking, you start watching, you start looking Does he well? Doesn't he well? He's got some help. We need to change or whatsoever. And I think, in general today, there's not a lot of decision making on the team.
Explain that.
Well, everybody, if you see today, the corner balls, they're all the same. And I can imagine that all the goalkeepers think the same. So you never see a change. Okay, you got a set play, everybody knows, when you got the ball. But how do you go against a set play from the other team? So how do you ruin it? Corner ball, you could say, okay, everybody got back, so their best people who can head are the players who are playing in the back. So you could say, okay, I put 3 players who can't head, we put them up front. They've got to get 3 or 4 people out there. So you take a risk away. So I always say to all my players, if the other team is great in corner balls, there's one solution. Don't have corner balls against. And if you don't have it against, there's no problem. In other words, I know it's exaggerating, but in other words, if you normally got 5 and you got 2 now, you reign 60%. Only by thinking.
And by dominating the ball. You don't give the corners away if you dominate the ball.
So you must do any stupid things. So you train and tell the people in this week or whatever, don't do this, don't do this. That's the preparation, in my way of thinking.
It's a terrible sadness, but I think we're running out of time. If there are no more questions from the floor, and Walter tells me that we have used up more than our hour, then it only remains to say thank you. An education, but also, as football should be, great fun. Ladies and gentlemen, Johan Cruyff.
Thank you.